For several months now, the entire world has had the opportunity to witness how the United States has continued to purposefully escalate tensions surrounding the friendly nation of Venezuela under the false pretext of combating drug trafficking and the threat of terrorism, illegally destroying civilian vessels in the waters of the Caribbean Sea. At the previous meeting of the Council, we all had the opportunity to see that behind this artificial facade lies the task of building up the American military grouping and exerting pressure on an independent state whose policies Washington disapproves of. It seemed the White House has decided to dust off the old practice of using the fight against terrorism as a pretext for overt aggression and interference in the affairs of sovereign states. This time, the legitimate government of the Bolivarian Republic has been declared a so-called foreign terrorist organization. They are attempting to impose upon all of us the deeply flawed logic that a mere single decision by the American authorities is somehow sufficient to instantly transform a sovereign nation into a criminal enterprise, whereupon any forceful actions taken against it can then be labeled a law enforcement operation, and even the protection of their own national interests. We see no point in delving into the absurdity of American pseudo-legal ploys, as they are so untenable and don't even remotely align with international law. The statement by the US President on December 16th requires no further interpretation. This is a direct claim to the natural resources and subsoil of another state and an open, if not boastful, exertion of military, political, and economic pressure with the aim of changing an undesirable regime. The United States is already reinforcing its positions with acts of outright piracy, aiming to seize sovereign natural resources, as we all had the opportunity to witness over the past week. We strongly condemn the seizure by the American military of oil tankers and the de facto imposition of a naval blockade on Venezuela. The actions of the American side contradict all key norms of international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, resolutions of the Security Council, and the very charter of the World Organization. Colleagues, the blockade of Venezuela's coast, illegally imposed by the United States, is a most genuine act of aggression. Unfortunately, there is every reason to believe that the actions of the United States towards Venezuela are not isolated incidents. This unfolding intervention could become a template for future forceful actions against Latin American states under the so-called Trump Amendment to the Monroe Doctrine, enshrined in the recently published U.S. National Security Strategy. And this is an unmistakable signal for all countries in the region that are striving to pursue a truly sovereign path and to independently determine their own economic, political, and cultural systems. In Washington, they are prepared to respect your independence and to take your interests into account only if you are willing to adjust yourselves to the interests of the United States and to follow a policy that is beneficial to them. Therefore, do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for you. It tolls for you. We affirm our solidarity with the Venezuelan people in the face of the trials they are enduring, and our support for the Maduro government's course aimed at protecting the national interests and sovereignty of its homeland. We regret that the new American administration, which shows sobriety and pragmatism in other crises, remains a hostage to approaches it actively criticizes in the case of Venezuela. We are counting on common sense to ultimately prevail, and that Washington will be able to stop in time and prevent a catastrophic mistake, which will inevitably result in the undermining of long-term American national interests.
For quite some time now, the United States, under the pretext of combating drug trafficking, has continuously increased its military deployment in the Caribbean Sea and off the coast of Venezuela, consistently escalating sanctions, blockades, and threats of military force. It has declared its intention to sink American vessels, kill their crew members, and seize their oil tankers, designating the Venezuelan government as a foreign terrorist organization, claiming Venezuela's territory, oil, and assets belong to the US, and even threatening military strikes against Venezuela's own mainland. The series of actions and statements from the United States has led to persistent tensions in the regional situation, arousing serious concerns among regional nations and the international community. To promote de-escalation of the situation and safeguard regional stability, he is willing to play a mediating role to achieve this. The Chinese side attaches great importance to the public letter recently sent by President Maduro. Venezuela, as an independent and sovereign nation, possesses the inherent right to pursue its own development path, to engage in mutually beneficial cooperation with other countries, and to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. The international community should respect and support this. The Chinese side opposes all unilateral hegemonic actions and supports all countries in defending their own sovereignty and national dignity. We oppose the use or threat of force in international relations and oppose external forces interfering in Venezuela's internal affairs under any pretext, and oppose illegal unilateral sanctions and long-arm jurisdiction lacking basis in international law and unauthorized by the Security Council. We call upon the United States to heed the international community's just demands, immediately cease its relevant actions, and prevent further escalation of tensions.
Let me begin by stating and reiterating the United States does not recognize Nicolas Maduro or his cronies as the legitimate government of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro is a fugitive from American justice and the head of the foreign terrorist organization Cartel de los Soles. In fact, Maduro and his regime stole the election, and the international community has the receipts. President Trump has been very clear that he is going to use the full power of the United States of America, the full might of the United States, to take on and eradicate these drug cartels which have operated with impunity in our hemisphere for far too long, and everyone knows it. These cartels are not like the mafia. These cartels are sophisticated, very technically capable, well-financed, and are wreaking havoc in our region. In its own 2025 World Drug Report, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime identified Venezuela as the key trafficking route in the entire Western Hemisphere for illegal drugs and for illegal narcotics and materials entering the United States and increasingly Europe. The United States will impose and enforce sanctions to the maximum extent to deprive Maduro of the resources he uses to fund Cartel de los Soles, which the United States has designated as a foreign terrorist organization, along with Tren de Aragua. Important to this council meeting today, this includes profits from the sale of oil used to finance these cartels. The reality of the situation is that sanctioned oil tankers operate as the primary economic lifeline for Maduro and his illegitimate regime. The sanctioned tankers also fund the narco-terrorist group Cartel de los Soles. Maduro is responsible for trafficking, using these resources and using these profits into both the United States and Europe. And one has to ask, why have sanctions, either bilaterally, unilaterally, or backed by the international community, if they're not enforced? Well, the United States under President Trump is enforcing them in international waters. Otherwise, they are just empty words. The people of Venezuela, frankly, deserve better. These people who have suffered under Maduro's socialist dictatorship. It is the action and policies of the illegitimate Maduro regime that pose an extraordinary threat to our hemisphere's peace and stability, and to that of the United States.